Today, we're sharing the key findings of a new paper titled Behind the Words: How IMF and World Bank Discourse Sustains Neoliberal Agendas and Shapes Advocacy in the Arab Region. This paper started from a simple observation that many of us, activists, researchers, and professionals who engage with international financial institutions, often discuss informally. We say almost casually that when the IMF talks about fiscal consolidation, they really mean austerity, or that when they promote labor market flexibilization, they're often enabling deeper informality and weaker protections. So we wanted to take that intuition seriously and study it systematically in the Arab region. Why do we feel that we constantly need to decode the language of these institutions? And what does that language actually do? Over the past decade, the IMF and the World Bank's language has shifted noticeably. Their documents now speak more than ever about social protection, gender, climate, and inequality. But this paper argues that while their discourse has changed, their policy framework largely has not. Using discourse analysis, word frequency analysis, and interviews with regional experts and advocates, the research shows that language operates as a strategic tool, one that helps legitimize continuity rather than signal real change. The paper identifies 4 recurring discursive tactics in how the IMF and the World Bank talk about harmful policies and social policies. They first used language as a tool of legitimization and confusion. Second, they revert to responsibility shifting and narrative reversal to mitigate criticism. They also instrumentalize the language and discourse of social protection, and the language of civil society is being co-opted. Take austerity, for example. The word itself almost never appears in IMF documents. Instead, we see phrases like fiscal consolidation, fiscal discipline, or sound budgeting. These terms sound neutral, even responsible, but they often describe policies that cut public spending and deepen inequality. The language doesn't remove the harm, it just obscures it. The same happens with labor policy. What used to be called deregulation is now framed as flexibility or flexibilization. But flexibility often translates into weaker job protections, more precarious work, and greater informality, especially affecting women and young people and marginalized populations. And when criticism persists, the discourse shifts again towards responsibility shifting. IMF programs are described as homegrown, placing the burden of failure on governments, even though these policies, as we all know, are shaped through its conditionality and unequal bargaining power. Civil society evidence is often dismissed as emotional or unscientific, while IMF models remain opaque and inaccessible. Nowhere is this more visible than in social protection. Mentions of social protection in IMF and World Bank documents have surged over the past 2 decades, but this is not a rights-based term. Social protection is framed mainly as a way to cushion austerity through targeted safety nets, rather than as a universal social security grounded in social justice. At the same time, civil society language itself is being co-opted. Terms like gender, climate, and inequality now feature prominently, but they're often stripped of their political and redistributive meaning and folded back into market-centered, austerity-friendly frameworks. What emerges is continuity disguised as reform. The paper concludes that today, struggles over economic and social policy are increasingly struggles over language. Who defines the terms? Who controls their meaning? And to what end? For advocates in the Arab region, engaging with IFIs now requires not only technical expertise, but also discursive literacy, the ability to decode, challenge, and reclaim the meaning of reform itself. Because behind the words, the policies remain the same.